Gaza is more than a headline. It's home to over 2 million people, half of them children, now living through catastrophe. Airstrikes have reduced entire neighborhoods to rubble in seconds. Families who have lived here for generations have lost everything. The sky, once a symbol of hope, now brings only fear. This crisis is not distant. It's unfolding in crowded streets and cramped homes, touching every life. Years of blockade had already crippled Gaza's economy and hospitals. Now, the latest violence has pushed this fragile system past the breaking point. The world watches as people struggle daily for survival. These are not just statistics. They are mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. The human cost is staggering. The dead and wounded rise each day, but the trauma runs even deeper. Children have witnessed horrors no child should see. Parents are powerless to protect their families. The constant sound of drones and explosions is now the soundtrack of life. There is no safe place. Homes, schools, and hospitals are all at risk. Hopelessness hangs over the Strip like a heavy blanket. The scale of this crisis is unprecedented. The world has been warned about the consequences of Gaza's isolation. Now, those warnings are reality. Calls for ceasefires and aid echo, but for those on the ground, words are not enough. They need more than promises. They need action. They need a future where their children can live without fear. Israeli military operations have been relentless, pounding Gaza from north to south. The stated goal is to target militants, but bombs do not distinguish between fighters and families. Entire apartment blocks have been flattened, burying lives under concrete. People are told to evacuate, but there is nowhere safe to go. Displacement is constant. Families flee one neighborhood only to find the next under attack. Daily life has stopped. The streets are empty and dangerous. Even searching for bread or water is a life-threatening risk. Children are terrified, parents helpless. Gaza's social fabric is being torn apart with every explosion. Infrastructure is in ruins, roads cratered, power lines down, water pipes shattered. Schools are now rubble or overcrowded shelters. This is not collateral damage. It's the dismantling of a society. Rebuilding will take years, but resources are scarce. Behind every statistic is a stolen future. A father, a student, an elderly farmer. These are the lived experiences of ordinary people caught in a conflict they did not choose. The world must not look away from their suffering. Years of blockade had already left Gaza's basic services on the brink. Now the escalation has triggered total collapse. Food is scarce, bakeries bombed or out of flour, markets empty, and families rationing what little remains. Malnutrition, especially among children, is a deadly threat. Water infrastructure is in ruins. People walk miles for a chance at clean water, often forced to drink contaminated sources. This is a public health disaster in the making. Electricity is gone. The power plant has shut down, plunging Gaza into darkness. Hospitals can't run equipment, water pumps don't work, and families are cut off from information. At night, the only light comes from explosions. Medical supplies are nearly gone. Hospitals are overwhelmed, doctors forced to perform surgeries on the floor without anesthesia. Wards overflow with wounded. There are not enough beds, medicine, or staff. The blockade makes it nearly impossible to bring in new supplies. Healthcare workers are heroes, but they are being asked to do the impossible. The system is not just strained, it is broken. Every day, survival becomes harder. Gaza's collapse is a humanitarian emergency. Aid organizations are ready, but getting help to those in need is a monumental challenge. Border crossings are closed or barely functioning. Aid trucks are delayed by endless inspections. Bureaucratic hurdles cost lives. Medical supplies can be held up for days over a single item. Even when aid enters, distribution is dangerous. Ongoing fighting and destroyed roads make many areas inaccessible. Aid convoys have been hit, and workers killed. Fuel shortages mean trucks and ambulances can't operate. Communication is crippled by power outages and damaged networks. Aid agencies struggle to coordinate, and people in need can't find help. The scale of need is overwhelming. What gets through is a fraction of what's required. For every truck that enters, hundreds more wait. Calls for safe corridors and increased access often go unheeded. Political and military realities create a brutal obstacle course for relief. The result: millions continue to suffer, trapped by war and bureaucracy. Humanitarian relief is being choked at every turn. On the world stage, leaders express concern and hold emergency meetings. Calls for ceasefire and humanitarian access are made, but for Gazans, these words ring hollow. The gap between diplomatic statements and reality is vast. Ceasefire talks stall over deep mistrust and conflicting goals. Israel insists on security. Hamas demands an end to the blockade. Regional mediators have limited leverage, and the U.S. is seen as biased. The international community is divided, paralyzing action. UN resolutions are vetoed or watered down to meaninglessness. This failure sends a message: impunity prevails. Temporary truces allow brief aid, but do not address root causes. Real peace requires a fundamental shift in diplomacy. The focus must move from managing crisis to resolving it. Only courage and genuine commitment can break the deadlock. The Gaza conflict sends shockwaves across the Middle East, threatening wider war. Lebanon fears escalation with Hezbollah. Red Sea attacks disrupt global trade. Gaza is the spark in a regional tinderbox. Egypt faces pressure to open its border, balancing humanitarian needs with security fears. The Rafah crossing is a lifeline, but Egypt fears a mass refugee influx. Jordan, with its large Palestinian population, faces public anger and risks internal unrest. The crisis strains regional stability and peace treaties. Non-state militant groups across the region are emboldened, launching attacks and rallying support. The longer the war continues, the more unpredictable the security environment becomes. This is not just about Gaza, it's about the future of the entire region. More players are drawn in, making peace harder to achieve. The conflict's ripples threaten to engulf the Middle East. International humanitarian law is clear. Civilians must be protected in conflict. Armies must distinguish between combatants and civilians and avoid excessive harm. In Gaza, the high civilian toll and destruction of neighborhoods raise serious legal questions. Airstrikes on crowded areas and near hospitals challenge the principle of distinction. The blockade's impact on food, water, and medicine may constitute collective punishment. Starvation as a weapon is a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions. Investigating alleged war crimes is difficult, but essential. Organizations like the International Criminal Court have a mandate to seek accountability. Justice is not about taking sides, it's about upholding international law. Without accountability, the laws of war are meaningless. Justice for Gaza's victims is essential for any future peace. Displacement in Gaza is staggering. Over 1.5 million people have fled their homes. Most were already refugees. Now, a new wave is forced south by evacuation orders. The southern strip, especially Rafah, is now a massive overcrowded camp. People live in tents, classrooms, or out in the open, with little food, water, or sanitation. Disease spreads rapidly. Conditions are inhumane. Families are separated, children orphaned, the elderly and disabled left behind. The sense of community is shattered. People compete for scarce resources. This is not just temporary displacement, it's the destruction of a society. Even if fighting stops, most have no homes to return to. Rebuilding will take years, and many fear this displacement will become permanent. Parallels to the Nakba of 1948 haunt Palestinians. The right to return must be protected. Anything less betrays their fundamental rights. The world must not let this crisis become permanent. The immediate priority is a lasting ceasefire. Bombing and rockets must stop. Only then can aid reach those in desperate need, and families find their loved ones. Ceasefire is the bare minimum humanity demands. After the fighting, the world must commit to rebuilding Gaza. Not just buildings, but lives. The blockade must be lifted. Gaza cannot recover as an open-air prison. People need freedom of movement and a chance to build their future. Reconstruction alone is not enough. The root causes, occupation, settlements, denial of self-determination, must be addressed. There can be no security for Israelis without justice for Palestinians. The world must move beyond lip service to real action. A new approach is needed, one based on law, rights, and equality. This requires bold leadership and empathy for all sides. The people of Gaza ask not for charity, but for dignity and peace. The world has a moral obligation to listen and act. The road to peace begins with justice.